Welcome to Better, the podcast about doing better, being better, and leaving the world a better place than we found it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Better, do better, be better, make the world a better place. I'm going to do this right off the top really quick. I have a book. It's called The Last First Date. It is inspired by the real story about how I met my girlfriend, and it's got a lot of better relationship lessons in it. So contemporary romance with a little bit of learning. But in my opinion, and the opinion of 50 BA readers, my editor and my girlfriend, a great read. So absolutely go pick that up on Amazon. Pre-order for the ebook is starting November 1st, and the actual book's available March 1st. And if you're in Winnipeg, February 16th, we have a book release at Hermano's. You can hit me up if you'd like to come. For this podcast, though, because it's not about this book, even though it's awesome. For this podcast, betterpodcast.live. If you just come across this podcast on the web, the algorithm just fed it to you. Go to that website, check it out. We got tons of episodes, solo episodes, which I do, where I'm talking about my better journey, and I'm joined in better moments by such amazing people as Eva LaRue and Mick Foley, Kurt Angle, James Patrick Stewart, Eric Roberts. So many great people have joined me for their better moments on my solo episodes. And then we have our guest episodes. And this is part 2 of our guest episode with Mariah Pettry. So I'm going to bring her in right now. How you doing, Mariah?
I'm doing good.
So part 1, we talked about your childhood trauma, your faith, and whether you kind of have to deal with the ongoing stress of addiction. This episode, I really want to dive into your better moments. So you gave me 5 better moments, and I think that all 5 are really interesting. And we're going to try to get through these. I don't know if we'll get through all of them, but we'll try. So the first one you gave me was a better moment was after you lost custody of your son due to addiction. So the way I like to frame it, so I do a lot of better moments with different celebrities, and the way I frame the question to them is, tell me a moment that deeply affected you and what you did to come out of it better. So let's deal with that one. Each of them, that's how we'll deal with them, but let's start with that one.
All right. Yeah. So I think that was a real pivotal moment because I was in an abusive relationship at the time, and that's how I actually lost custody. We were in addiction, but it was because of that abusive relationship. He actually was very abusive and knocked me out with my son in my arms, and my mom and them came. He called my mom, busted my phone, left the door open to government. We lived in government housing. So it was really bad. But anyway, after that happened, that was kind of like my, wow, you need to get your life together. How can you even walk through life and see people who know that you've had a kid and he's not with you anymore? And so that was kind of my start of my 1 million rehab stints. I recognized there was a problem whenever that happened. But before that, I was like, yeah, it's fine. I can quit anytime. It's going to be okay. But that was my, okay, you have a problem.
So it didn't cure you, so to speak, but it started you on the journey to being better.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was like the pivotal moment to the start of it. So how many years ago was that?
So my son's 11. My son's 11 now. So yeah, about 11, 10 and a half years ago. I lost him whenever he was 6 months old.
Okay. So, and then you said you've been sober 7 years. So there's like a 3-year journey where the better moments kind of stack up to get you to the ultimate moment when you get to that facility which really ends up changing your life. So, and if you
Right.
guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's because you didn't watch part 1. So go watch part 1. Okay, the second better moment was after you lost your job and couldn't support your habit. So I'm guessing that's before you lost your kid? Or is that after?
No, I actually kept a job during those times, and I kept multiple different, but I always had a job. So maybe these were like the pivotal moments. These two. I think like the better moments were more so like the last ones, but the pivotal, like where my life like things shifted, I guess. Uh,
Right.
and so whenever I couldn't keep a job anymore because I would be sick and I would call out all the time, that's whenever I became homeless and I started stealing from like all my family. And they wouldn't let me in their house anymore. And so I became homeless, and then I had to do other things for money. And that was another really big, pivotal, uh, traumatic thing, I guess, that happened. But it also was, I think it made me, like, have you ever seen the show Intervention? I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Heard of
It
it?
was, I found it very hard to watch. So I didn't watch it a lot.
Well, I watched it whenever I was in high school, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how could people do this? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Like, I just never understood. And I'm like, I'll never be like that. Like, I will never, like, if you become an addict, like, and you are using drugs consistently, you're eventually going to get through all of those nevers. And that was my final never, that I never thought that I would get to, is the prostitution and the homelessness and my whole family abandoning me. So maybe not one of my better moments, I guess, but it was a it was a big,
Well,
kind of like I'm giving up.
I've had about 1,000 better moments myself. So, they come in all shapes and varieties. And ultimately, I think a better moment is where you're confronted with something that just is not right, and you don't know how to handle it, and then you end up figuring out, here's how I can do better in this situation.
Right.
So prostitution is definitely, the world is a weird relationship with prostitution,
Yeah,
right? The world is a weird relationship with sex in general.
it does.
But prostitution is one of those things where the vast majority of women, I think, are doing it because they have no other choice. Like, I think that's why you did it, right? It's because you had really no choice. You had lost your jobs, you had a habit to fuel, and obviously that's the easiest way to do it because you know men in the presence of women are idiots. So first time doing that, were you sober for it?
I was dope sick. I was sick. I didn't have any drugs. And I was at a gas station, and this man was pumping his tire, and I was sitting there, and I mean, like sweat pouring down me, like I looked ill, and he must have known. Um, but he said, "Do you need a ride somewhere?" And I needed a ride to the park because that's where I was sleeping. And he, on the way there, he just asked me, well, I got this much money. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I need drugs. So yeah, you know?
So you weren't even like, hey, I'm going to be a prostitute. You were just, some
Yeah.
guy decided to take advantage of that situation in your desperation.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. So I can do this for this. All right. I mean, I never thought that I would. And I tried to be like proper and like I tried to be a classy prostitute for a while.
Yeah,
Like,
like an
I'm
escort.
only going to do, you know what I mean? But that didn't work out either. So
That is a great example of why it is that people have to have a mantra. Like, this is my mantra, and I really think it's a mantra we should all adopt, is don't create victims intentionally ever.
mm,
He could have just as easily helped you out with some cash or some food or whatever without the sexual side
yeah.
of it. And if he had been a better person, that could have been a better moment for you. It could have changed your life, or it could have continued down the road to spiral in addiction. But at least there might have been a chance. I think that what could have been a better moment, by his presence in your life, that he turned that into a much worse moment. And how many years did you do? How many years were you a prostitute?
4.
4 years. Okay. So what, I mean, it's hard to get this deep into this stuff, but what did that feel like after each time, we'll say? Did it get easier? Did it get harder? What kind of thoughts did you have?
So it did it became like a job, right? I mean, that's what it is. It's like a job, and it's just like, all right, let's get it over with. I need to go get my dope. Like, let's get it over with. Like, I have to go get my dope. And then so it became almost like annoying. Like, I still have impacts from that today. Like, I had to relearn a relationship with my husband, like not treating sex as a job. I know might seem like an uncomfortable conversation for some people, but it really is. I don't think there's not enough talk about that, because I know that, like, oh, well, prostitutes, that's your decision, and you were on drugs, like, your problem, right? But there's still, it is hard to have a normal functioning relationship at first with men, and just viewing men different, like in a normal way in general. So it really like tainted my mind of men, and for a long time.
I mean, how could it not, right? I mean, you like I said, there's a choice. Every guy has a choice in those situations. I don't remember if I've talked about this in the show before, but I did a Halloween event one year in like the worst area of this city. And while we were setting up and everything, there was prostitutes coming around all the time and whatever. And there was another work crew there that was working on another part of the warehouse. I found that they were always like walking away with them and everything. And I was like, oh God. And I just, every time they came up, and I would have a conversation with them, say like, look, I'm not going to do this, right. If you need XYZ, not money, because I felt like if I gave them money, it would just go to drugs or whatever. So I was like, you need food? We got a buffet in here for the workers, something like that. But it's so important. And you touched on something else interesting in that you said people are often like, well, it was your choice to do these things. But at any point, had somebody of good character come along, did it? Oh, well, actually, I shouldn't assume. Did anybody of good character come along and really try to help you, or were you pretty much on your own?
So there were people who would try to help me, but then it always ended up like, I haven't been asked that before. It's about to make me cry, actually. Everybody would always expect me, because they knew that I was a prostitute, even after, they would act like they were doing all these good things, even for days or weeks or months. And then at the end of it, or a couple or that long down the road, they would, bring me to their house and act like I could have a place to stay. And really, they would just take off your clothes. I've done all this for you. Now you owe me, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's common for people to think that way. And that's why I'm saying had there just been one of those people had been an actual a person of good character. This is why, there's a big conversation about character right now for all the obvious reasons that there are, right?
Yeah,
and I don't like to get into politics too much. I think that we're coming off of the U.S. election right now at the time of taping this. I think the Democrats ran a campaign on character, and the Republicans ran a campaign on whatever it is that they ran a campaign on. And I have some friends who are hardcore Republicans, and they gave me their points as to why they voted Republican. I'm not going to shun somebody just because they voted for somebody I don't agree with.
Right.
But I have a really hard time divorcing character from what a person does, right. Because character drives everything. Mm-hmm. And if there had just been somebody of good character that came along that genuinely had the faculties and the resources to help you, this story could have gotten better quicker, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually have a friend now that I met. It's really funny. I met her at the rehab and she was a cop. And I thought she was coming to take me back to jail because I kept getting caught smoking. But I ran down the street away from her. She was like, I was just trying to meet you. But anyway, I met her and she's been my friend. She's been that person that you're talking about ever since. And I say, if I could have just met you a few years sooner, like if I could have just met you sooner, I tell her that all the time.
Huh. Okay. Well, it's good you actually eventually finally had somebody like that.
Yeah.
The thing that I really I can't relate to, and that's why I have these conversations, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I think the reason why most people have a podcast because they get to have interesting conversations. Like, when would we have ever talked? Never.
Right.
If weren't for the
Exactly.
podcast, right? So, the thing I can't quite get my head around is the descent. So, like, your next one is after you got arrested.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to say. What did you get arrested for?
I don't care to tell you.
Okay.
It's so, to be short, a guy had picked me up to go back to his house. He knew what I did, so he picked up the stuff beforehand, and I went back to his house, and he wanted to try some. He started drinking and wanted to try some, and I used a needle at the time, and this was whenever that elephant tranquilizer stuff was going around. Like, it was very, very, yeah, it was
Sorry,
very
not in tune with the elephant tranquilizer.
Oh, okay. So they had been mixing elephant tranquilizer with heroin for a long time, and that was during that period. And it was very, very potent. And I was like, you can't do that. And he said, well, you can't leave until I try some. I just want to try a little bit. Like, just let me try some. You can't leave, And
Oh God!
so I was there for, all day long, and I thought he was just joking, and he really didn't let me go. So I was like, whatever. And I did, and he overdosed, and he fell on the ground, and he's naked, I'm naked, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I'm trying to bring him back to life. He has like the death rattle going on.
Mm-hmm.
But he started breathing, but it was a death rattle. So I got him back to life, but he was still, so I called the ambulance. All I could find was a jacket, my bra, my my pants. This is like January in West Virginia, and it was snowing, and I walked out the door. I found one shoe, so jacket, bra, pants, one shoe, and my purse, and I walk out the door because the ambulance had got there, and the cop met me at the door, and he said, where are you going? And I was like, leaving, like, he overdosed. I was just calling to let you know. And they searched me, and they got me with a felony for delivery of a controlled substance. So I don't know how that worked. It's like delivering it. I don't know. But he got charged with like nothing. I was like, well, I don't even know him. Right.
So he didn't die.
Didn't die.
Okay. So, and this is where this is where people have a hard time with the system.
Mm-hmm.
So he picked up the stuff, gave it to you, wanted to try it. You finally say, okay, fine, because he, kept bugging you about it. He ODs. You get charged with delivery.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have the time to do it. I would love to jump into that trial. Did you just plead guilty and call it a day because you realized what they would think of you in front of the court, or was there a full trial and everything?
No, I pled guilty because they said to collect all the evidence and to fight it, I'd be there for about 2 years. And I just didn't want to wait. I was like, whatever, like, I did it. Yeah, whatever.
And you actually, I can't remember if it was this episode or the last one, but you said you found comfort in jail because you could have a shower and get everything you needed. Okay. So Wow, that's, we should have you and Jeffrey Deskovic on the show because, well, you weren't necessarily wrongfully convicted, but
Right.
you were convicted for something that doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about, wow, the whole that whole story is kind of mind-boggling to me. So you get arrested
Yeah.
for this. You go, you said 15 years is what they offered, what ended up being the
So yeah, I mean it was like 1 to 15. So but what happened is
1 to 15 was what they gave you as a range.
yeah.
Okay,
So
continue.
yeah, it's West Virginia, and it's like the hills. Like I got arrested in the worst county ever in West Virginia. Like if it would have been a county over, I wouldn't have got this charge at all. But anyway, it had to happen, and I appreciate my felony. Like I do. I
Okay.
appreciate it because it is what set everything into motion for me to be where I am today. Um like
You
I
think
said,
getting
after,
arrested for something you didn't even necessarily do was a better moment for you?
yeah,
Wow.
it was.
You are a glass is half full type of person.
I'm annoyingly optimistic, yes. um so shoot, where was I going with that? I forgot. I forgot what I was about to say. What were
You
we
just said it
talking
was
about?
the worst place. You got 1 to 15 years.
Oh, yeah. So I actually she let me out. So they let me out on probation, right? She said, "Okay, we'll let you out on probation." And I was out for a weekend and I overdosed twice in that weekend. And I came back to meet her on the Monday. Let me out Friday, overdosed twice over the weekend, came on Monday. And she was like, why are you testing negative? Like you just got out and got on probation. You think I wasn't going to test you? And I was like, yeah, but I just thought that you'd let me off with it. And she threw me right back in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a mess up, I guess. Like I messed up on probation and I would have had to finish my 15-year sentence if I didn't complete that rehab. It was a year long.
Right. Okay. Uh, Total opinion is not something that everybody should take as gospel or anything, and we're not trying to force policy or anything. Do you think the right place for drug users is jail
No.
when they haven't committed a violent crime or anything?
So I don't, but some people it helps. So like for just a little bit. Obviously, like if they did something really wrong, then yeah, but well, I don't know. See, they need to be rehabilitated. Like they need to be around other sober people who are working towards sobriety and a better life. Jail, you there's drugs coming in there all the time. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and there it's a whole different world in jail. Like you have to adapt to that culture or you're gonna get ate. I mean, you're just gonna get ate up there.
Right. So, but you went to almost like a forced confinement in that faith-based rehab, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
couldn't
No.
leave, right?
Yeah. Well, no, you
Yeah.
can't
So
leave.
does that not the better place for people to go? Like,
Yes.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know why our instinct is to throw people who have a problem with drugs into jail.
Yeah.
It doesn't make much sense to me. I just jail seems to be the answer to everything when it comes to bad behavior, and some bad behavior is the result of, you know, my girlfriend has a line. She says there are no bad people. They're just people that have some sort of illness, right?
Right. Yeah.
She's a nurse, so that's how she thinks, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I don't necessarily share that. I think there are bad people out there who I know a couple of people that they were raised with every opportunity, every bit of abundance imaginable, and they still they did horrible things to people. But
Yeah.
somebody doing drugs as a result of a life lived of trauma and dealing with all these situations and people taking advantage and all that. I don't see it. I can't get my head around jail being the place to be. And your story is a great great example of why that it kind of reinforces that in my head that, you didn't rehab in jail, you rehabbed and you got clean in a rehab facility, which makes a
Right.
lot of sense.
Yeah.
I've always wondered if I had a family member that was massively addicted, would I ever just forcibly confine them and get it out of their system and call a doctor friend, what do you do if somebody just continually keeps going back? You
Yeah.
went back 26 times, right?
Mm-hmm. And every time I overdosed, like I would overdose and wake up in the hospital, like my clothes would be cut up. I don't know why they cut my clothes. I mean, I would have broken, what's this bone right here? Collarbone. Yeah. I mean, but from where they'd be trying to CPR, I guess.
Right.
I don't know. And I would still wake up. And the first thing I did every single time was I would look for my dope.
Jesus. Oh, well, I'm telling you, you'll definitely. I think there's another guest I would like to get in a three-way conversation here with you at some point, and not necessarily Jeffrey, but somebody else, Alicia, who was on this show before. Okay, let's deal with the last two because I know you got to go and get your kid. After you graduated from your 27th rehab, which is the faith-based facility, yes?
Yes, right.
What did that feel like?
Scary. Because I'd been confined for like a year, right? But it was also hopeful. Like they had helped me. I mean, I had a job. I had met my now husband, who's amazing, like amazing.
You must be.
Oh, he really is. He is amazing, and he deals with my crap. So, anyway, and I also got my son back. So like relearning how to be a normal human being who pays bills. I'd never paid bills before. So like just the responsibility of doing that, having normal conversations with people who aren't addicts, and then just getting up, going to work every day, and relearning everything. And then I learned how to be a wife and how to be a mom. And that was a really beautiful time. It really was. Like, just appreciating the little moments that I had been praying for so long. Like, and I just wanted to hold my son sometimes. And I could never do it before. I have a new appreciation for life because I don't believe I should be here.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So wait, you met your husband in rehab?
No, it was because I didn't have my phone the whole time. I mean, for a year. So after I got out, I was on Facebook and I seen him on there, and I was like, "Oh, he's cute."
Oh, you slid into his DMs?
I did. I was like, "Hey, I'm fresh out of rehab."
Wow, that's. Did he have experience with this at all? Like this?
He is in recovery also. Yeah,
he's in recovery also.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's interesting. So a common thread for my girlfriend and I is we have been the caretakers in many of our relationships, we'll say.
Oh, yeah.
So we relate on that a lot, and it's interesting because you would never have ended up with your husband had you both not gone through this experience,
right?
And in my book, it's actually called, I don't know if you've ever heard of Einstein's theory of spooky action or quantum entanglement, but in the book, the fictional side of this is it's like there's an emotional quantum entanglement, almost like people have the same energy, but they need to go through things to get that energy closer and closer. Once they finally have gotten to the point where their energies fully complement each other, that's when they meet. So
it's so good.
Yeah, I'm finding I kind of came up with it just out of thin air, just because I really wanted to make science and religion part of this book series.
Yeah.
But now, I'm like, huh, maybe this isn't total fiction.
No, totally. Everything. I mean, everything that worked out, it led up to that moment. And I don't know about you and your girlfriend, but with him, because of my prostitution, because of my abusive relationships, it's like once I, while I'm with him, and since I've been with him, it's like he has healed all of those parts of me that were broken from the people before.
And you probably did
And
the same for him.
yeah,
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. That's what this podcast is all about. I mean, you guys both came from horrible circumstance and turned it all around.
Right.
And clearly you're not homeless. Clearly you're not on, yeah, you're not on drugs. You're not suffering. You got your kids back. I mean, that's amazing. That's a full circle story for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And we had a
Okay.
baby. So yeah.
What's that?
We had a baby, and
Okay.
yeah.
Nice. Congrats. Number 5, you're because you got to get going. After you started school and your business. So that's obviously after the 27th rehab.
Yeah, right.
What made you do that?
So whenever I was down on my knees in prayer, the 2 weeks before I got arrested, I had told God, if you can get me out of this, this was probably, I thought he expected something of me if he helped me, right? And so I said, if you can get me out of this, I'll be a soldier for you. I'll be a warrior. I don't care what it is. I'll help people, whatever you want me to do. And so after I learned how to be a mom and a wife and somebody who cleans the house and pays the bills, I felt like a tug at my heart to help other people. Like, what I went through wasn't for nothing. I'm here for a reason. Anybody who's gone through anything is here for a reason. You went through the health crisis, whatever that thing was. I'm going to have to go and listen to your thing so I can figure out what you're talking about, because it's been in the back of my mind. But anyway, we all came out of things for a reason. It's to help those who are still struggling, because we have the experience that we have made it out. So I knew that I wanted to help people, and so I started to go to school for psychology. So I'm going to be a therapist, but I didn't want to wait that long. So I built a business from scratch and became a trauma coach for about 3 years, and then I pivoted to like marketing and business.
And for anybody who thinks that's a weird transition, as somebody that was in marketing business, there's a lot of psychology involved.
A lot.
Yeah. A lot. Yeah. Okay, so that's good. So I just kind of I since you got to get going, we'll put a bow on this.
Okay.
A lot of people. There's 2 things I want to talk about here. So the first thing being, a lot of people will look at the faith side of what we just talked about and roll their eyes, right? And I used to be one of you, but here's the thing about the way the world probably works. I'm not going to say this is the way the world works, but this is the way the world probably works, because I've seen endless examples of this, especially since I started this podcast. And that is whether it's prayer, whether it's positive energy, whether it's good vibes, whether it's, good character, whatever it is, energies attract. And if you are using prayer to do that, that's not something to roll your eyes at. That's something to celebrate, the same way that you probably have affirmations, or you write things down and you have vision boards or whatever. It's all fundamentally the same thing. It's just the messaging, the mechanism for that is different. So regardless of whether like Mariah feels that God helped her through prayer and through getting her through that situation, which got her to the point of being 100% better, or whether you find it through just constant momentum and not letting things get in your way. Either way, the point here is that if you're moving in a direction, this is just what I talk about all the time. if you want to watch a TV show that perfectly exemplifies this, watch Smallville. I know I'm a comic nerd. I get it. But watch Smallville, because at the beginning of the show, Clark Kent and Lex Luthor start off as good people. And it's little choices. And they slowly move away from each other. One becomes good, one becomes evil. Energy is like that too. If you keep putting it out there, let's say this is the good direction, you keep putting it out there, you're going to keep moving in that direction until you get to the point where your 27th time in rehab works. You find a husband, you start a business, you go to school, you have a child, you don't get that child taken away from you, you get your child brought back to you, another child. These things didn't happen just out of happenstance. They happened because Mariah put in the work to be better. And now I don't remember what the second point was that I was going to make, but at the end of the day, I'll leave you guys with this, and then I'll let Mariah have a final say if she wants. And that is, this story perfectly articulates why we should be good people and why we need to have good character. We need to understand our morals and our non-negotiables in this world. So if you're listening or watching this and you can think of anybody who you're victimizing right now, even in the smallest ways, figure out a way to stop doing that. Whether you go to BetterHelp, whether you go to a therapist, in person, whether you reach out to somebody who is much more emotionally in tune than you, however you do it, you need to, that's how you start being better. If you're wondering, how do I become a better person? That's how you start. I'm going to bring Mariah back in here quick. Mariah, do you have anything you want to say before I let you go?
I guess I'll just amplify what you said. I mean, it's just we think that the small choices don't necessarily matter, but they really do. They add up, and it has to be a consistent. I'm very stubborn. I know that. So if I want something, I'm going to go after it. And now that I have built a business and I'm going to school and I've made it to sobriety, I was at the bottom of the bottom, and I really want to encourage anybody who feels like they're looking at me and they're in that position, or you're looking, even if you have a loved one that is in addiction and you're looking at me and thinking, oh, I could never get there, or my loved one could never get there. They can. And it's the very small choices. And that person that you had talked about, if you just had one person who encouraged you and would have brought you up and given you the resources to get back up on your feet, I could have gotten better sooner. So
right.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Go get that kid from school, and I will.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll talk again.
Yes.
All right. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for checking out Better. If you got to the end, it must mean you liked the episode, right? So how about 5 stars? Maybe a sub, maybe a share. Great universal comment points. And good luck on your better journey.